Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
So you say you've been documenting all of this as they come to you, and you say you remember a couple every year, right? And you have 49 experiences documented so far, but from what you can remember, when did these experiences begin?
From day one, as far back as I can remember.
Oh, okay. Wow. So ever since you were little?
Yes. Yeah, I saw a shadow robot when my brother was still in diapers, and so I guess he's 2 years younger than me. So I was about 4 or 3.5. Yeah, and there was a flash behind us in the room, and the room was dark. We were watching television, and so I turned around and I saw what looked like a little R2-D2 from that movie Space Odyssey. But just a shadow, just a shadow, and that was it, and it wasn't going anywhere. It was just there. And, my younger brother was too young to even know, because I tried to show it to him, and he didn't seem to, care. But
no.
Yeah, saw a shadow robot.
Has he had experiences as well?
When I was about 4. A little bit, yeah. He was abducted with me twice. But he doesn't remember as much as I do. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you guys have both been taken. What about other members of your family? Because some people do feel like it does run in families and it might be a genetic thing, and that's why you guys are being taken.
Yes, I think that's true. But, I lived in an alien-infested neighborhood. They were in a barn. These aliens were in a barn. We called them Martians in the 60s. And the children seemed to know about them. Half of them called them ghosts.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I wrote a few things down. I better start there. So the first day we moved into this neighborhood, a young girl came up to me and said, I forget what she said, but she pointed to the barn that we could see from the front of my house and said, that's a haunted house. They called it a haunted house. So I asked her if she had seen ghosts, and she said no. And that was it. She didn't know much else. Another day, 3 kids were walking by, and they stopped. They were talking to me, and one was looking at the barn with some kind of fear or and anger or something like that. So I said to him, have you seen the ghosts in the haunted house? And he said, no, he had seen them, but they're not ghosts.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's how it started. And I said, well, what were they? He said, I don't know what they were.
He just said they weren't ghosts.
They weren't ghosts, he
said.
Yeah. And then they kept going.
So,
and then another...
I'm sorry, no. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
And another time, this was a redhead kid, and we were playing outside the barn, and he come up, and I think he thought we were Martians because we were about the size of them. And he said, have you seen the guys that live in that barn? And I said, no, because I had gone in the barn, I said, no, I heard a voice in the barn and told me to get out of the barn because it's dangerous in there. He looked at me and said, you went in the barn? And I said, yes. And he made me feel brave because he said I wouldn't touch that barn with a 10-foot pole.
He wouldn't go in there, huh?
That's what he said. Yeah.
So is
okay,
it?
So
they would actually take you at some point, but if you went in the barn, they would just say, no, you need to go. This is not someplace you should be.
Yeah, I was in there with my younger brother, and we were standing on what looked like a molten circle of cement, like the cement had been melted by extreme heat, and and I was standing on it, and that's when I heard the voice say, get off this area, it's dangerous. And I looked at my brother and said, did you hear anything? And he said, no. And I said, oh, geez, let's get out of here. I just heard a ghost. And we took off out of there and never went back in. So another time, it was a young girl. She just kind of appeared. We didn't hear her walk up. She just appeared behind us. And she pointed at the barn. We were right outside the barn. She pointed at it and said, do you know what's in there? And I told her I had heard a voice telling me to get out. And I think it was a ghost. So she giggled and said, no, they're not ghosts. They're my friends, is what she said. They're my friends. They're like doctors. She said it's very shiny in there.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember everything. Lots of, she said, tools that doctors would use.
Oh, my.
Yep,
so
inside that barn.
Maybe that's a place where she was actually taken and then returned, and she just associated that with what we would think of when we watch a movie like Fire in the Sky and Travis Walton being aboard a ship and having these beings do things to them, right?
Well, what I know is that they were in there the whole time, but they were invisible, so we couldn't see them.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what it was. They were invisible. Like the police had been called and told that, the kids were seen taken in there by the Martians, and they opened the barn doors, and there's nothing in there. So they leave. And so it was like that. They were stationed in this neighborhood, in this barn, and they were abducting the whole neighborhood, one by one kid at a time. That's what was happening in this neighborhood.
Here is a resolution worth sticking to. Keeping your home and family safe. That's why I recommend Simply Safe. I now have state-of-the-art technology throughout my home, including an interactive camera that helps me monitor my home even when I'm away. And I installed my Simply Safe system in just minutes. Simply Safe has 24/7 home security with no contracts or catches. They believe the safest place on earth should be your own home, so you feel protected every time you shut your door, leave for work, or shut your eyes at night. More than 3 million people already feel this way every day thanks to Simply Safe. And they're not the only ones. The folks at PC Mag named Simply Safe both Editor's Choice and Reader's Choice for 2018. So ask yourself, is my home as safe as it could be? If there's hesitation, then maybe this is the year to change that. Get Simply Safe. Just go to simplysafe.com/fray to get started. That's simplysafe.com/fray to protect your home and family today. simplysafe.com/fray. So the cops had been called out because the kids would go missing, the parents would get worried.
Yes,
cops
yes,
would come
I was told that's
wow.
that happened,
Okay.
yeah.
And these kids would always be returned or not always be returned?
Always be returned, I guess.
Wow.
So like this little
John,
girl.
Can we
Yeah,
say the
go
state?
ahead,
Is it okay if we say what state this was in before we go on?
It was around 1962.
And what?
When I saw the 7 aliens. But
And
they were there for years. They were in that barn for years until one day my father, it's another story, right? When I wasn't believed either, right? We weren't believed as kids.
What state is this in, John?
I was in Montreal, Canada.
Okay.
Just outside, Montreal and Laval.
And if I could just say before we go on, so that, people that might be a little skeptical right now, I just want to say that you do...
I'm sure they will be, because everything I say is unbelievable. Okay, go ahead.
That's okay.
It really is.
There is physical evidence of these encounters that, of course, we will get into here in a little bit that you have had. Mm-hmm. But you've sent me pictures of what looks like a scoop mark right above your knee or on your knee. I couldn't quite tell if that was right above it or on the patella area.
Yeah, just above the kneecap. Yeah. Just above the kneecap.
That's actually a pretty significant scoop mark. And I wanted to ask you, and maybe that's the same one that I asked you to talk about or a different one, but do you remember what happened to you in that instance?
Yeah, that's a good little story. The day that happened, my mother had made me wear shorts, or else I might not have seen what I saw. So, I used to sometimes hear little jingle bells like ring, and they would get louder, and that was it. I'd be abducted, and you wouldn't really feel much. And then when they bring you back to, you don't feel anything either. You're just walking along like nothing happened. You just come back to. It's mind control, too. And so when I looked down at my knee, and it had just been done. It was freshly done. When I first looked, it was raw flesh. I was looking at it, and I started getting really scared. And something calmed me right down. So, they use mind control, and they can do that stuff. And then I almost watched it heal a thin layer of shiny scab. It was that fast. No blood anywhere. Just a scoop of flesh taken out. So who knows what they're doing with that, They're doing that to us.
Yeah, it's their own, 23andMe program, right?
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine.
John, what about the bells? You say you hear bells each and every time?
Yeah, no, not every time, but a lot of the times I would hear these, the brown jingle bells that you see around Christmas. Like hundreds of them shaking, and then it would get louder, and would start off very faintly and get louder, and then, that would be it.
And so you would know every time you heard that, you're like, well, here we go.
Yeah, I started realizing what was going to happen. Yeah.
How long, once you go, maybe you can't tell why you're in the experience, but, do your parents, realize that you're missing, or how long are you usually gone for?
The day I saw the 7 identical aliens, I was gone from 8 in the morning till around 8 at night. And, my parents were strict, and I pretty well got beaten when I got back, and they didn't believe that I had seen, Martians, and I said they had no eyes because their eyes were black.
How old were you when that happened?
Yeah, it's quite the story. Maybe 4.5.
Oh.
It was before I went to school. I went to school the following spring.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and dive into that story, I would be very interested to hear that.
Okay, this little girl appeared behind us, and I got a lot of information from her, but I didn't believe her, and I'm kicking myself still for not listening to everything she said. So she says, "Do you know what's in there?" And described the shiny and bright, and these surgical doctor's tools, we called them, and they looked like doctors. She said they're like doctors. Then she said, some of them look like us, some of them look something like us, and some of them look nothing like us. And she started describing ones with big heads, giant eyes, and all the scary stuff, and I thought she had lost her mind. I was just a little kid, never heard nothing like this before. So I said, it was me and my younger brother, and I said, let's get out of here. We walked back home. But from what I got from her is they had already done the hybrid stuff and looked like us already in the 60s, early 60s. Yeah, terrible what's going on. Okay, so that was it for her. Then the next thing I wrote down here was I had seen the movie War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
And the sounds that came from when the spaceships attacked, loud sounds. And some kid was walking down the middle of the street, and I was outside the front of my... I'm saying it wrong. Okay, now I'm outside in front of my house, and I hear something that sounded like a jumbo jet firing up just about 100 feet from me, mixed with like thunder and static at the same time, all three sounds, and kaboom and bang. And I had heard that the ghosts were Martians, and they had seen this War of the Worlds, and I thought, holy geez, the Martians are here and they're taking over the planet right now.
Right.
So I went diving into my basement and hid in there for at least an hour. And I thought they were killing everybody. I was that scared. And after about an hour, went upstairs, and my mother was doing dishes. And I said, didn't you hear that sound? And she said, yeah, what was that? There's no airport around here, she said. Like that. So then I went to the front door and opened it and was so thankful that everything was still intact. I was that scared. So later that day, I'm outside, and this kid walks up the middle of the road, and he comes right to me, and he says, did you see it? No, I said, but I heard it. Oh, my God. And then I said, was it the Martians? And he was, everything I said and asked him, he was stumped. He kind of seemed stumped about it. I don't think he had even thought about Martians. So he mumbled a bit, and then he said...
It seems like the neighborhood kids would, like you guys would converse quite a bit about what was going on, huh? Like it was happening to a lot of the kids out there.
Yeah, we talked to each other.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he said, then he finally said it was a spaceship. And it came through the barn roof and didn't damage it, and was hovering over the barn roof. This was great for me. I love paranormal stuff as a young kid, too. So I said to him, what color was it? And again, he seemed a little bit stumped, and he finally said it was the color of a rainbow. He said the colors of a rainbow. And so I said, what shape was it? He said, then he stumped again. He said, then he said it was changing shapes. Yeah, very strange. Yeah.
So what about that? What about that sound, John, that you would hear, that War of the Worlds sound? And I can hear it right now, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners are hearing it in their head as we are talking about it. It
was very close somehow.
But when would you hear that?
No, it was just at one time. At one time. The same day that kid came walking down the street. Okay. I had heard it earlier in the day. And apparently it drew quite the crowd. He said lots of people were outside the barn, and said I saw it come through the barn. After it fired up, the noise drew people in. Yeah. I was only it's like a block and a half away from the barn. Not city blocks, just small residential blocks. So maybe 500 feet.
That is interesting, though, that even your mother heard this sound, but then when you were gone for the entire day, you still got in a lot of trouble. So that makes me sad, right? That she wouldn't even maybe think that something odd was going on. Did any of the other kids' parents think something odd? If their kids were gone for 12 hours or more at a time, or a couple days at a time?
No, it wasn't a couple of days at a time, but it was that one day they did have me all day, from morning till night, and couldn't explain myself.
Right, and you tried, and they didn't believe you.
No, because I only remembered about 20 minutes of it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because you were telling that was the truth, right? You only remembered about 20 minutes of it.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, and a lot happened. Okay, so after that, the kid said to me before he left, he said, "What's your name?" And I'm going to remember it, he said, and left. The kid was in shock. He was in shock after seeing what he saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. And never saw that kid again. So now my next door neighbor, I had made friends with a kid next door, Billy. He was about a year older than me. I hadn't seen him in about a year. I'm cutting through a lot of stuff because there's not a lot of time. And he said, and he was there. He came back. That he used to spend some time at his grandmother's next door. That's what it was. And we weren't allowed to go out till 8 in the morning, and he knew that and was waiting for me till I went out. And he came out, and he was wearing a jacket, and he didn't say hi or hey, long time no see, because I hadn't seen him in a year. He said, "Have you seen the Martians?" No, I said. Then he looked at me like I was the only one in the neighborhood that hadn't seen them. And then he said, "Do you want to see them?" I was nervous, but I did want to see them. So, okay, I said. And then he got nervous and didn't want to, and then I talked him into it. So we go running up to this barn, and he is nervous as hell, and he said, "Let's hide here," and we hid behind a little sand dune so that we couldn't see the barn until we stood up and looked over the hill at it.
Right.
But we were right up close to it. So he was standing up and looking at it and ducking back down. And the third time he did it, he said, "Here they come." And I look up and I saw what looked like little kids coming out of the front of the barn. It looked like they were running, but they were hitting the ground and bouncing off the ground, and their legs were going like a whirlwind, like a blur. And so I saw that, and they were bouncing, trying to run. And then, I don't know, they didn't have to do this, like this whole abduction thing, because they could just do the ringing of the bells thing and have me. But they did this for some reason.
Why do you think that is, John? Why is that?
No idea. No, I know they did.
Because you're right. They didn't have to go through all of that, right?
No, they didn't have to. I know that now for sure. They did this for a reason. And so now they're materializing, just like on Star Trek. I saw one in front of me. Half of his face was still wrinkly, and then it went completely smooth. And then they're, all around me, 7 of them. I counted them twice.
So, okay, hold on. Before you go on, I'm sorry. Before you go on, you said its face went from wrinkly to smooth.
Yes, like baby skin smooth.
But it was the classic gray, or it looked like a person, or what did it look like?
It looked like a young Asian without the slant eyes, young Asian kid.
But it went from wrinkly to smooth.
Linda Moulton Howe describes them as Filipino looking, and that's
right.
Yeah, black hair.
Wow.
And yeah, they look like kids.
And their skin can change like that very, very quickly.
No, they were skin color like us, and
tiny
hands, but they had black eyes. Black-eyed kids, Yeah, they were the black-eyed kids, classic black-eyed kids. And one of them held out its hand, and so I held out mine, and it got me by the wrist. So now they had me by the wrist, and there were 7 of them. So I say, "What do you guys want?" There was no answer or reply or anything. Now I'm thinking I'm in real big trouble right now. So I didn't know what to do. So I liked Batman. That's what I used to do, watch Batman. And I thought, what would Batman do in a case like this? So the alien was holding me, the Martian, was holding me along my left wrist. And I had my right hand free. And I thought, I better, hit this thing in the face and run like hell. Even though I was a young kid, I guess I was pretty tough. I wasn't even 5 years old. Yeah. But that's what, when you're in terror, I guess, yeah.
Right.
He didn't answer me, so yeah. So suddenly I hear a voice in my head say, "Picture it before you do it."
Oh.
Okay, I say it to myself, I'll picture it before I do it. And I pictured it in my head. And as I pictured hitting the alien, the alien actually thought I was hitting him. It was the strangest thing. It blacked me out. When I came back to, the alien was reeled right back looking at me, and its back was only maybe 6 inches off the ground. Like it was weightless and looking up at me like, you know.
So hang on, you almost did a form of mind control on it that it could do on everybody else that we say, right? Like you said it happened as you were thinking it, before you actually did it. It reacted to something.
Yes, the voice told me to think of it in my, picture it in my mind before I did it. I don't even know if I was going to do it because there were 7 of them. It was kind of risky.
Right, but who told you that, or what told you to do that?
One of them was a leader, the leader in the pack, and
so maybe
he was just a little taller. They still all look the same, like septuplets.
Right.
But one was a little taller, and
why would he tell you? Why would he give you that hint? Right, like think of it before you do it, or maybe he was just saying, "Hey,
well,
be
I think it was
teaching.
It was teaching the other 6 how to abduct children.
Oh.
That's what I.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things I thought of. But your guess is as good as mine, and that's what happened.
I'm just saying he gave you a really good tip right there, and you actually, were able to execute something with your mind against them.
Well, I remember the alien standing up and looking over at the one that was a little taller, and then looking back at me. So then I think that didn't work, and I looked down at my hand. And its hand was so small, it didn't even go all the way around my wrist. There was like a half an inch gap or something between its fingertips and its thumb. So I thought I'm going to pull as hard as I can and pull out of this and run like hell. It didn't work. These things are superhumanly strong. It was like trying to pull my hand out of a handcuff. It's exactly what it was like. And because I was pulling with all my, terrified and in shock, I pulled as hard as I could. I would have probably pulled my arm off pulled my hand off if it was attached to a wall. But this thing gave me a little bit of give and stopped dead. And, it was stopped dead just like a handcuff. And I started getting really bad pain on my wrist. And like really bad. And they made it go away. It's incredible what they can do. But before that happened, and after that happened, it made the pain go away. It rolled its hand on my wrist. But the hand didn't move, but I could feel the hand rolling on my wrist. Talk about strange.
Like an Indian burn? Like you would give someone an Indian burn, but it didn't hurt?
Yeah, it sounds about right, like an Indian, but it went right to the bone, because when I pulled, it was like, it was like trying to pull out of a handcuff. This thing, hand turned metal or something. Very strong, yeah. And like I said, I just gave me just enough give not to hurt myself too bad. Yeah, but it did hurt. So then, motioned me to sit down. They sat in a perfect circle, 7 of them. That's when I counted them. I thought I'll count them again just to make sure. I was going around counting these 7 little Asian-looking Martians without slanted eyes, but the eyes were black. And when I got to the seventh one, it morphed into a full-blown gray alien. It was controlling my eyes. First thing I was looking at was the jacket, and there was a decal on the jacket. It was a pair of wings made up of tiny triangles. It was incredible artwork. It was, like fractional geometry. It was black and white, and it was on an oval-shaped decal on its chest. And it was wearing, this is what really bothers me. It was wearing what looked like an army-issue bomber jacket.
Yeah, that's
didn't look like anything, like an alien.
Creepy.
Yeah, I didn't like it at all. Still don't. And so And they were wearing clothes. These Martians were wearing clothes that was about 20 or 30 years outdated. They weren't wearing clothes from the 20s or 30s, and it was in the 60s. So they don't have their timelines right. You know, I saw that and I thought it was really weird. And they used a pail. It was a metal pail, and we had plastic in the 60s, but their clothes matched the pail. It was from another era.
Mm.
Yeah, it was strange.
Why would
like
the
farmers.
last one decide to change? Because they knew that you were counting them, and that was kind of maybe something keeping you calm, so they wanted to shake that up, or...
Who knows? Sorry, I forgot even telling you. I'm not used to doing this stuff. Okay, so yeah, I was looking at it, and it was controlling my eyes. I looked at the decal first, then it brought my eyes right to the top of its head. There was a crease in the top of its head,
Yeah.
with three hairs sticking out of it, as thick as my finger and about as long as my fingers. Yeah, they're all different sizes, but about the same as fingers.
Oh, that's interesting.
Then,
I don't know if I've ever heard anything quite like that. It had 3 hairs sticking out of its head.
Yes. This one had 3 hairs. It looked like it was 1,000,000 years old, this thing.
Really?
Now Now my eyes are slowly moving down the side of its head, and till I saw its face, and I went into shock. These things are hideous. But I slowly saw everything before I went into shock. The face was right down at the bottom of this huge head, like the mouth and chin, I guess. And huge eyes. The eyes were smaller than softballs, but they were bigger than baseballs.
Mm.
Were perfectly round, yeah. The eyes were black.
Now, how tall were these things, John,
They were my
compared to
height.
you? Okay,
They
so
were my height.
They were quite small.
Right.
So, and again, this is just conjecture, but you had the experience, so I want to ask you. I mean, with them being able to change, you know, you said earlier they went from wrinkly to smooth, or at least the one of them did, and then this one, it has hairs and it looks 1,000,000 years old, which would seem quite frightening to a child, if you ask me. I mean, not that the whole thing isn't frightening anyway, but do you think it's just trying to test you, or is it just misinterpreting what might comfort you? Because it's like, oh, well, no, look, I have hair. I'm normal. I have 3 hairs on my head. Like, what do you think that was for?
Like I said, I don't know why they did it, because they didn't have to. They didn't have to do any of that. They could just ring the bells and get me.
Right.
So it's a very mysterious thing, this alien abduction thing. And, you know, I've read all the books, and I've never read anything like what happened in this neighborhood, where they stayed for years until it was my father that took care of them. We had pet rabbits when we were kids. So one of the rabbits was following me, and the door automatically closed. It was one of those doors that closed, and I didn't know the rabbit was behind me, and the door closing. Poor rabbit was killed by the door. And he told me to go bury the rabbit. Out beside the barn, there was some sand where I could easily dig it up and bury the rabbit. And he, we had to do what the old man told us, or I got beaten. But I was so scared. And he saw how nervous and scared I got, and I said, no, I'm not going over there. I said, the Martians will come out of the barn and get me. And he looked at me and he said, oh, yeah, let's go see about that. And so we went walking up there. I said, I'll wait out here. He went inside. He was in there for a while. I was too scared to go in at first, and he was in there for a while, and I opened the door and I said, did you see anything? And there was no answer, so I thought the aliens got him.
Right.
Yeah, so I went in. And he was in there on his hands and knees on that circular molten cement part, and he was smelling the ground.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's what he was a hunter. He was from a small island in Greece.
Right.
So he could track anything, and he knew what he was doing. Then he got up, looking at everything, and he was putting his hands up on the rafters and feeling and looking at his fingers. Other things, he kept looking at things and looking back at the molten thing and at the circle. And suddenly he said, "Let's get out of here." Like he heard something. So when we got out of the barn, he looked at me and he said, "What do they look like?" So I described what I saw. The gray, I said, "They're small with the black eyes and this and that." And we walked back home. And he kept looking back at the barn. And I said, "What did you see?" And he said to me, "There wasn't one straw in that barn," which to him was impossible. It was a barn for animals and it should have been full of straw, and not one straw in the barn, he said. No dust in the barn, he said. And he said something hot enough to melt the cement didn't burn the wood 2 or 3 feet away, but it melted the cement. So this was too much for him. Yeah, he had never seen anything like that. So anyways, next morning, I got up and I looked over towards the barn and I couldn't see it. "What's going on here?" I said. So I went. I felt kind of brave because I hadn't gone up to the barn much after they abducted me. But I went up to see what was going on. The barn was burnt to the ground, and I knew my father did it. Yeah. Oh, also that little girl with the dark curly hair that told me all about the Martians inside.
Right.
She said they were her friends, and they told her that some bad kids had burnt down the last house they were in.
The last house they were in. Okay.
Right, which was probably a barn big enough to fit their spaceship in. Yeah. So see what was going on. They were getting burnt out of neighborhoods, abducting as many kids as they could till someone burnt them down. Yeah.
So this is very relative.
Crazy what's going on.
But how big was this barn?
It was a full-size barn.
Okay.
The second level.
Okay. Like one of the old school, like if you see in Ohio or a place like that, like the biggest barn you can have. And so they would actually take their ships into them. Okay.
Yeah. And when I walked up to the second level and got up there and walked around, about a dozen floorboards were missing, big, 6 by 4 foot plywood boards that were on the floor were missing. When these spaceships fire up, it was like they had 1 foot in another dimension because they could go through the ceiling. And the floorboards that blew off of the second floor in the barn went through the roof too. They were scattered outside the barn. Yeah.
So as fancy as their technology could be, make them invisible and such, it seems like occasionally, obviously with the melting of things or wood flying around, they still weren't completely unable to interact with their surroundings.
Right, and they still have to fire up their spaceship.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens then after your father?
So I'm glad I got all that out. I didn't think I would. Well,
no, that was
awesome.
A lot
out, but,
that was great, John. Thank you. I know you were like, I don't know if I have enough time, but so what about your father? Once he's like, I see no hay in the barn. That must have been very creepy for him, and then he subsequently burns it down. So, I mean, then what happens to the neighborhood? Or, I mean, then does your mother go, "Oh, well, what the heck happened to the barn?" Or, did he
did
tell
it in the
her?
middle of the night. Nobody saw anything. Like I said, I got up in the morning and looked, and the barn was gone. So nobody saw anything. Or I would have heard fire truck or something.
Okay, so so your mom wasn't privy to the fact that your dad actually was the one that took care of the barn.
No, he didn't say anything. I went in and it smelled like he had been drinking all night, and yeah, I knew he had done. I said, "What?" I'm trying to remember. I said, "The barn burned down." I said, and he said, "You see that wood does burn." Oh,
wow. Okay, because he had seen the
his
concrete.
Mind, he thought he was going to light it on fire and it wouldn't burn down.
Right.
Right,
because he knew that something very hot had melted the concrete right there, right? So he's like, what the heck is going on around here? Like, this
dry
should have
barn
burned
wood,
down.
2-3 feet away.
Yeah, right.
So
Wow.
so he took care of the aliens. They were still there when I walked up. I could, they were still there, but it's hard to explain that one. And they were very angry with them too. Yeah.
What did that mean for you guys though? If they were angry?
Well, didn't mean anything to me. He seemed okay. They didn't hurt him, I think.
What about you though? I mean, did they still? I mean, obviously they took you after that, but then did you have to pay for them?
With these.
Yeah. Did you have to pay for them?
No. They, I don't know. They just go on with what they're doing.
Okay.
They moved to another barn, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not vindictive. They just have a job to do.
Yeah.
Whatever that might be. What do you think?
Well, they do
is?
get angry. I've experienced aliens getting angry a few times. It's hard to remember everything, but yeah, they do get angry. Yeah.
What do you remember at all? What they would get angry about? And it's okay if you don't remember. It's you just say, hey, I don't remember that, or I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind right away is it's a little bit, I don't know, person, but it'll give you a good sense of what aliens are like and what they think of us. I'm going to say it to you. I was curled up in the fetal position on a spaceship, and with me, it was like they wanted to educate me. And I have a lot of 10-second memories. They start and they stop about 10 seconds later. So this one started, I'm curled up on the floor of a spaceship, and the alien said, "What is it you want?" And I thought about it for a second, and I said, "I want to go home to my mother," which really, she was not a good mother, and we were neglected and beaten every day and all that. And yeah, it was really bad. And so this infuriated the alien. The aliens did not like my mother, so they do care about us. It's weird.
Oh, so they knew. They're like, you don't want to go home to her. She beats you. She's not good to you. And they got upset about that. That upset them.
Yeah. Not only that, wait till you hear what they did. It said, "She is not your mother. I am your mother." And as the alien said this, it flashed an image of my mother and what she was doing at the time where this was happening. She was having sex with my father, and it was just enough to see that they were doing that, and it was over. And the feeling of wanting to go home to my mother for, I don't know, some kind of protection or comfort went away. They took it away from me. And I was fine. I didn't want to go home. And I realized, well, what are they going to do? They took it away. They can do that. Yeah. And it's still that way. It was a permanent takeaway.
Wow.
Yeah. Weird stuff. So that's why I didn't want to say it, because they did that, and it's very strange how they're that integrated into our lives, and want to do that kind of thing and think
so
that
because
way. And tell me it was my mother.
Right.
I was so happy to hear, what's her name? It was first read it in a book, and another ad that he said that the alien told them it was their mother. And then Carla Turner also said it. An alien told her it was,
Dr.
So yeah, they did that
Turner's
to me
books
too.
are really good. You've read all of those?
Yes.
On the
Yes,
Fringe.
so I
and
know
all
that she was, there was a mantis type that told her that.
Yeah.
Me, I had my eyes shut. I don't know what it was, or I didn't want to look at it. Just knew that it was a Martian.
So most of the 49 experiences so far that you've remembered and you've documented, again, huge high five. I wish more people would write stuff down that have a lot of experiences.
Yeah, and I've only written down the first basic memory because I remember the rest of it. I'm writing down like titles of what could be a book, even. Yeah.
So most of those though are these little blips in time. They're 10-second memories. Not that I'm diminishing that in any way.
A lot of them are
very poignant. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them are.
So, Are you scared of these experiences,
No.
John?
These Martian will scare you more than anything else can scare you. Yeah, they do that. They are like that. Like if I had looked at the one that changed into a full-blown gray any longer, I might not be able to speak today. You do go into some kind of shock. They're the real monsters, in our nightmares, I guess. And
do you mean like?
So it only let me look at it for a few seconds. All what I saw was maybe 3 or 4 seconds.
Because maybe that's all you could handle?
Right. You knew that, and it changed back into the little Asian kid type thing. Type black-eyed kid.
But why even let you see those few seconds? Why do that?
Yeah, exactly. And why was it wearing a military type bomber jacket?
Yeah, that's very disturbing.
The darkest green I've ever seen. It was almost a green.
Really?
Yeah, very green-black. Yeah. Never seen green as dark again.
And besides the jacket, what was it wearing?
Well, the rest before it changed, it was wearing glamorous clothes. Were from the 30s or 20s or 30s. Way outdated stuff. And you know what? I can't remember if it was wearing pants. I just remember the jacket. And
right. No, I get that. That's what I was kind of getting at. But I totally appreciate if you're like, I just don't remember. I totally understand.
It also had its hands hidden. It's like one hand went into the crotch and one down beside the leg, and I couldn't see them. It had one that's right knee up. Yeah.
It's right knee up.
So I didn't get to see the hands, or I don't remember seeing feet either. It was sitting down. It was crouched, cross-legged, or one leg up, and hands hidden in its legs.
Do you know?
And then it changed back. Yeah.
Do you have any sense of, or have you overheard any talking from them? Actual talking or telepathic, anything? Why they're
all
here?
The time.
Where they're from?
All the time.
What are they saying?
All the time. No. The question, I have asked them questions. And, if I accuse them for something, they turn it completely around on me, and it's like it's my fault.
Oh.
And so I was too scared to cross the street at one time, so it took me about a year, and I crossed the street and sat down, and I knew they could hear me because they had spoken to me telepathically, so I spoke to them telepathically. And I called them a disease. I said, "You're a disease. You infected my neighborhood, and we can't get rid of you. It's like disease." They answered me. This is an alien quote. They said, "If it wasn't for us, there would be nothing here." And then they showed me a picture in my head of what it would look like. They can also show you pictures. And it was rough. I don't think there was any sun. It was like dusky and just like gravel and not even a blade of grass. And they meant nothing. There would be nothing here. Wow. So they created everything, is what they said to me. So it was, I had stuck my foot in my mouth. Okay. It turned out that when I thought about it, we were infecting their neighborhood. Yeah.
Oh, we are all in their neighborhood.
We are infecting their neighborhood. That's what I figured out. See, I called them and I said to them they're infecting my neighborhood, but no.
I don't think that's all that far out. I really don't.
Yep, this is all theirs.
I don't think that's very far-fetched.
No, that's what they said to me. So the second time, I accused them of something. And I had heard Bud Hopkins, who was the best, right? In my mind, the very best.
Yes.
He said one of his abductees had gone to a group meeting and was told that not to worry too much about this alien abduction because they had agreed to it in their previous life. Or they had agreed to it before they came here into this life. So, and he was quite upset at this. They said that and did not believe it for a second. But Hopkins, he was totally against that. His client being told that.
Yeah.
So now I say, one day I say to an alien, and no visual. This is another 10-second memory. why would you do this to an innocent kid that has never done anything wrong? All these terrible experiments and traumatizing me and all this. And the alien's answer was, you're very lucky. It kind of pissed me off. And I said, you're a bald-faced liar. Oh, the alien, the next move was it brought me back to before born. Mm. Yeah, I was okay. Wherever it was cool, no problems. And I'm standing next to, I don't know, my spirit guide or spirit alien or whatever, and they're showing me this life here. And I felt luckier than I have ever felt or could feel. There's no amount of money that would make me feel as lucky as I was feeling. They were giving me this opportunity to come here, to Earth, I guess, And it's quite, quite the prize for us when we're up there to be able to do this. So these are prize lives, even though, people are killing themselves and suicide and all that. Really, this is quite precious.
So beyond just those of us that at least don't remember any abductions or experiences on crafts or with beings, for you as an abductee and having all these experiences, then are they saying you're, a little bit even more chosen than those of us even just here on Earth doing our thing every day?
Yeah, they sure took it out on me more than the other kids in the neighborhood that I know of. Because one was my cousin that lived 3 houses over. Yeah. And she doesn't even remember anything. And she had even told me when she was younger that they took her inside the barn by the wrist. But yet remembers nothing about Martians or abductions or anything like it.
Don't you wonder, though, why...
I remember everything, though. Yeah. I don't need hypnosis. I can imagine. If I got hypnosis, the information would come spilling out like tidal waves.
Right.
Yeah, that, because I know so much already without it.
So,
And like I said, just 10-second memories of what happened with the rest of the time. There's a lot going on, yeah.
The barn, though, do you feel like the barn... why did they use the barn so much? Because kids would go in there because there's animals to pet and it's just kind of cool. Like you weren't supposed to go in there. So if they could go invisible, right? Like why would they need to use a barn? Like they wouldn't go to people's houses and do the whole, some people say that, and even some of Bud Hopkins' people would say that the walls may as well have not been there. The windows may as well have not been there. They go through these things. It wouldn't matter. So I'm just wondering why they utilize the barn so much.
It's a good question. They survived the fire, too. They were still okay in there.
Right. Right.
What else? You're right. You had to find aliens. They're in barns. And I said to someone at work, I work with some Filipinos, and they go out and buy goats from farm beer and butcher them and drink beer and cook them. It's something they do. And so they went out. It was out near Montreal from Toronto, and to buy a goat. And they were buying the goat, and an old farmer came up to them, pointed to a barn in a field, and said, "Don't go near that barn. It's full of Martians." So in other words, if all these people looking to prove aliens exist, really all they have to do is start looking for abandoned barns and going in there and looking for things like no straw, melted floor, cement, that type of thing.
Of course,
and just hang out and they'll eventually see them,
But the question is, though, of course, how do we prove it? I mean, if today, right now, if you and we were in Canada and we found a barn and there's a barn, we know there's aliens there. If we walked in there with a camera rolling or an iPhone rolling or something, I mean, they still wouldn't really show themselves to us, right? Not at least to where we could capture it, but we're going to get to that because you have video. But, you know what I'm saying? If we go into the barn and they have the tools set up and the ship is there and they're ready to go, we wouldn't be able to film that whole thing.
You're right, but the melted cement, if they still have the same type of spaceships that melt the ground,
right,
the cement into a swirling looking lava pool, swirled lava.
That's a good point, though. So have you heard of, because this was a long time ago when you said you were younger and your dad was on his hands and knees and looking at the cement like, what in the hell is this? And he did what he did. Are they still doing that? Are you seeing reports, or are you kind of keeping track of things to where people are like, what happened to my cement? It's in a swirl pattern. It's melted. This is very strange. Is that still going on?
Well, they told me about the farmer that told them not to go near the barn because the Martians wasn't. It was years and years after the 60s. You know,
okay.
It happened to me.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I believe it's still going on. New neighborhoods, you know, there were new houses going up, and the barn was left and abandoned in the field, and that's the type of situation you look for. And I don't recommend it. Like, please don't do it. But these guys that really want to find the aliens, yeah, that's one way of doing it. Look for the abandoned barns. Look inside them.
But doesn't it seem like you and some of the other kids and some, like your brother, you guys were taken together a couple of times. You're more chosen than other people, right? So, I mean, if maybe I would go in a barn, I don't have a lot of experiences.
It was the whole neighborhood. They picked the whole neighborhood.
Wow.
But they did pick excessively on me.
Are you in touch with any of those? And you were so little, I totally get it, but are you still in touch or know of any of those people that maybe you could still talk to and bounce these experiences off of and say, hey, did you have this happen to you?
No, because when I was about 12, we moved here to Toronto.
Yeah.
And I lost touch with everybody there, yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
I saw aliens again. There was 2 aliens. My brother was with me again. It's a long story, but I'll shorten it. We came up to a flat rock that led down to a little waterfall in the forest. And when we climbed down onto the flat rock, there were 2 kids down there, and I thought, oh no, they look like Martians. And I hope they don't have black eyes. And then they looked up at me. They didn't. They had regular whites in their eyes. But one was holding a gun, and one was holding a pike, a fish, by the head. But it had a grip on its head so that the fish was sticking out in front of it. It was strange the way an alien holds a pike. And I said to the kid, how did you get that fish? It answered in French. It said, I shot it. I didn't understand what it said. And then I heard in my head, telepathically, I shot it. And my little brother said, what did he say when it spoke French? And I said, he shot it. I was worried about getting shot myself. And
why wouldn't it just answer you in English if they were trying to fool you by looking like kids, right? Isn't that so odd? Why not just say, oh, well, we shot it.
When you're in the presence of aliens, you start experiencing high strangeness. I read it in a book, and it's so true. It's you can't explain it. It's high strangeness.
But you had but you had enough experiences to where at that point you had heard from the other kids in the neighborhood that you saw these what at first looked like kids on the flat rock, right? And you're going. They were
at the bottom of a waterfall. We were on rock looking down at them.
And they look like Martians. Like that's your first thought.
Well, yeah, they had that look of the Filipino without the slant eyes. But this time the eyes were white, and they had whites in their eyes this time.
Totally?
Yeah, they were
totally
still
white?
Martians. No, just the regular eyes.
Okay.
Like us.
Okay.
And So now my brothers look at me and we look back. They're not there anymore. So I say to him, "Did you see them leave?" He said, "No." And then I realized right away, yeah, they were Martians. Let's get the hell out of here. So we go back and we were at a picnic, and they said, "Where were you?" Right? Everybody's been looking for you. And they had packed up all the food. We were starving. Who knows how many hours they had us. And half the people had left. And my auntie said, "Where were you?" And I said, "We went, and there were some kids with a gun, and they had a fish." And she made us bring her back there. It was all an illusion. It was a small little trickle of a thing that no fish could live in, and what we saw was an illusion. Yeah.
Wow.
We experienced virtual reality. That's what happened that day. So they can do what they want, make you look at anything, and make it look real. You don't know what it is.
You go back the same day, and it's just a trickle. There's no way a fish.
Oh yeah, just like half an hour later. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Gone.
John, how many other physical marks on your body do you have that you think are from them?
When I was a kid, the doctor looked in my ear and he said, I see you've had surgery in your ear." "What?" I said, no surgery." He went out and asked my mother, and I heard him, and she said, "No, he's never had surgery anywhere." He came back and he got bigger lights, and he was looking in my ear, and he started drawing something in older. When I went to look at what it was, he pulled away. And so I remember that. Years later, I was getting like a tickle or a pain in my ear, and I asked my younger daughter to look in my ear and to see if she could see anything, because I remembered the doctor incident,
Yeah.
Yeah, and she said, "Dad, it looks like stitches." She spooked me, right? And I'm like, "What?" And I said, "Can you draw it?" And I wish I could draw it for you. Yeah, it was 3 red, like, punctures, about 1/8 of an inch apart, with a slice in the middle, and another 3 about 1/2 an inch away, with the slice in the middle. It looked very strange. So next time someone looked in my ear, they saw the actual alien implant. It was silver. It was a little triangle. Remember the beanie caps kids used to wear in the 60s, I think? Yeah. A little propeller on it. So a little propeller beside the triangle in there. That was moving.
Oh.
Like things alive, yeah. So I was told that by everyone saw it, my wife, my kids, my coworkers. Just recently looked at them again. They've changed color. They've gone from silver to gold. I've, progressed.
The implant has changed color.
Yes.
What the hell does
They're
that
gold.
mean?
I don't know, but they are gold now, and they used to be silver. Yeah. So I don't know.
And the propeller is still moving?
It's not seen every time.
Yeah.
And the actual implants change.
But they can't get it out?
Pardon?
Can they get it out? Have you tried to say, "Hey, get this out"?
I wouldn't want to try. No, and then they're not always, they sink back into the flesh and the scar heals and everything. Right? It's the craziest thing you can imagine.
You know what? That sounds just like, oh my God. What's his name? Whitley Strieber, right?
Yes. I've got those.
He says he has implants that will react to people
and
trying
move around.
to. Yes. Yeah.
Yep. So when I read Whitley Strieber's book, it brought back the memory. An exact same thing. It's crazy. His door opened, and there was 3 people, a woman and 2 men, and one of them said code red, and he was blacked out. The exact same thing happened to me. My door opened, and the 3 people, one of them said code red, and I blacked out. My mother waking me up. I am outside and sleeping on the front lawn. She said, "What are you doing out here? You can't sleep out here." And I was so groggy, And my ear was burning like red hot, and I could feel something in the tip of my ear at the top. It's still there. I'm feeling it right now.
It's
burning,
at the
hot.
tip of your ear.
Yeah, and I say to her, who was in the house today? She said, no one was here. So it was very frustrating because I knew there was somebody there, and then my mother was saying, no, there was nobody here today. So it's very strange. Yeah, they looked like people, dressed in regular clothing, too. Yeah. So they were definitely Martians implanting my ear with some same thing that Whitley's got. Exactly.
John, I don't want you to take offense to this at all, but it just popped in my head. I was just going to ask it. Do you think there's any tie-in between people that have, and it's not every case, I know, but you mentioned how your mother was to you guys, and even you said the aliens knew. Do you think there's any tie-in between children that have abusive parents and then get abducted?
Yes. Whitley Strieber wrote that in one of his last books, that we are the ones that see the aliens. Yeah. I don't know. No, I don't. But it could be true. You know.
All right. So before we go, you, in fact, now, and I want to tell everybody that you sent me the photo of your knee with really a very massive scoop mark. It's not a subtle thing. It's very apparent what's gone on there. But also, you sent me a video which it shows two objects. One is brighter than the other, and then they come together, and then one of them blinks out, the one that is above the other, and then the other one just kind of hangs out there. And I mean,
did you see how it was lighting up the clouds above it?
Yes, it was so bright. There was a
lot
of
I couldn't look at it with binoculars. It looked
Really?
like arc welding. Yeah, I couldn't look at it with binoculars at all.
Because it was so different from the one above it. The one above it never did that. It was there. It looked like, I mean, you or I looked at some kind of an airplane light, although this one didn't move. I will say that. It was there. They came together. It blinked out. And then the other one comes over. And
they did it 6 times.
Bright.
Okay, 6 times.
Yeah. And it was very, very bright the way it was lightening up. So do you see that often? I mean, are you able to get that on video a lot?
I'm pretty sure I see that every year, but I never saw them double up like that. You know, you have to look at it steadily, and it happens so fast you'll miss it right, unless you're looking right at it when it does it. So I had seen the two lights together, but I had never seen it double up so fast, and that's when I knew they were definitely Martians, or aliens, So I see that all the time. I'm going to get bigger camera and the tripod because I was all shaky. And if you can get that onto a bigger screen, like I've got a Chromecast, I'm trying to figure it out and to get it onto my big flat screen because you can see a lot more.
I mean, are you okay with I share that? In the show
you can have it. That's yours. Go ahead.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
no problem. Thank you so much. No, it was impressive because the top light stays there, it hangs out, and the other one comes over, and the bottom one gets so bright. I was like, what in the world is that? That was very bright. It looks like a planet moving over, and then like they call it powering up or something, right? And it really did do that. So, okay, so
when I put my binoculars on it, they're rectangular. It's just that they were so bright, they look like,
they look circular, to us. So, a last question for you. If you get videos like that, and you sent me one, and I will, for everybody, thank you, John, from everybody, for sharing that, and I will share that. But when you see that, does that mean then that you're about to have another experience or get abducted?
No, the last experience I had was about 10 years ago, and I don't think they bother us much when we were hitting this. I'm 60, so I don't think it's the younger people they want. Okay. No, I don't know. I've got great ghost stories and Bigfoot stories.
Oh my goodness! I have to have you back on for another
story that's better than anybody's.
Oh my God! Let's get you back on.
Anybody's. Yeah, it's incredible.
But okay, so
up close,
John, do you think that that just seems so impactful for a child to be going through that. I mean, you were only 4.5.
No, this happened. This scripted thing was just recently. Yeah.
No. I mean, alien stuff.
Ah, okay.
I mean, if you're going through that when you're so young, and now, like you said, you're 60 years old, it's like, oh, great, thanks for just putting me through all of that. Or
they traumatize you for life. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And
they do.
But now that you're 60, they're like, oh, we don't need you anymore. We're gonna go, over here to this other neighborhood with all the other kids and traumatize these folks. That just it's very it's cold. It's heartless.
It is very
Yeah.
They don't have, I don't think, a heart or
Right.
I don't think soul or anything like that. But I don't know. They say they do. And who created them? So
Right.
they said they created us, right? Well, who created them? It's very strange. Everything is, yeah.
Right. But how much are they playing with everybody? With the mind control and the making you see your mother and father and, oh, don't bother them right now. And then, like I said, from then on,
mind control is unreal.
You felt differently about them.
You think you're doing it and thinking it, but it's them doing it to you. Yeah.
Oh.
It's very, very powerful. Yeah, they can do anything.
I thank you so much for doing this with me. And, before I let you go, can I use the UFO video that you sent me plus, and this is fine if you say no, I don't, it's not a pressure. Can I use the picture of your knee with the scoop mark?
Yes.
Okay.
You can do whatever you want with both of those, and hope you. Yeah, it works good.
All right.
I've got another scoop mark. I'll send you that too.
Thank you so much, John.
Okay.
I don't take it
Great
lightly.
talking to you, and hey,
No,
you're one of the best podcasts. I just
Oh.
started listening to them about a year ago, and this is great.
Thank you so much. No, I don't take it lightly that you guys are okay talking to me about this stuff. I think it's so flattering. I love it, and I appreciate you and your time. I don't like hearing though about the bad stuff. That's hard to hear.
Yeah, I know. I shouldn't say
No,
so many different things that happen.
See, but that might really impact somebody else, and they're like, you know what? By God, I've gone through that too, and maybe they come forward and share, and it gets more people to share. That's kind of the point of the show. So I appreciate that so much.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're not as scared after hearing me. Okay.
Well, it'll scare a few folks, but that's also the point. Right? I mean,
yes.
Some people, they like to be scared, but others go, oh my God, I have kind of experienced something similar.
Yes.
John, we will be in touch because I want to hear the rest of your stories.
Okay, yeah. And I'll be sending you another picture, and I've actually got another one of these same lights, but I don't think they double up. But I'll send it anyway. Yeah, just to show you that they were there from 10 o'clock till 12:30 at night.
Really? Is it one of the so there's kind of the lo-fi and then the brighter one. Is it one of the brighter ones?
It's the same thing. The two of them sort of close to each other before they really get close and double up.
Okay.
But they never really double up. They just kind of stay there. And you'll see littler ones flashing and coming down. And then they light up. And then when they go out, they're still there, and they're still flashing a bit and going down into the lake.
Oh.
Lake Ontario is a UFO hotspot.
So this is over Lake Ontario?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh.
Like after that row of lights you see in the background, it's all lake. And they're out over the lake, a couple more miles out behind the last row of lights you see.
It seems like there's something about the water. Oh, before you go, one last thing. I promise. I said that before, but I promise. So where you were in Montreal, Canada, where the barn was and all of this stuff with your dad, was that near a body of water?
Yes, I could walk to, they call it Harbor des Îles. It was a harbor, yes.
I mean, pretty significant body of water, right?
Yep, it was Harbor des Îles. I used to go fishing, yeah.
Something about that water, though, right?
Yeah, they're in there. Steve Boucher, when he was asked by the aliens, let him ask questions. He's an abductee from St. Catharines here in Ontario.
Uh-huh.
And he was talking to Grant Cameron, and what a story. Steve Boucher. And he asked if they had any bases around here, and they told him they had an alien base in Lake Ontario. Yeah, so that's what I'm looking at. That's what you have on video.
Oh, Grant Cameron, yeah. He's a heavy hitter in the UFO world. So Steve Boucher talked to Grant Cameron.
Yes. Steve Boucher, questions and answers. It's a video. It's awesome.
I will
link
that. Thanks, John.
Write it down and listen to Steve Boucher. He's really good.
I am jotting that down now so everybody can...
He's in a band, and the whole band was abducted, and another day, I think the whole concert was abducted. Yes.
God.
Yeah, what a story. Yeah.
I hadn't heard
and
of
he's
that.
so honest. He sounds like an East Coaster, and he's very honest.
Well, John, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I'm glad you liked it, Shannon, and it was great doing it.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. newspaper, and so on. You are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.